You know what's the worst thing ever? Loving a TV show or movie when you were young, only to realize that the older you get, the more you start to see the flaws in it. It's inevitable, nothing's perfect. And when we're kids, we aren't capable of looking at something with a critical eye. Now that doesn't mean you always start to dislike it. There are many things I watched as a kid and now I can look at them and say, yeah, it's flawed, but I still enjoy it. It's just a natural part of getting older, realizing the things that you once liked aren't as good as you thought. And that's a good thing. You don't want to be one of those people that aren't able to see the flaws in something due to being clouded by nostalgia. Now, on an unrelated note, this Simpsons movie. Yeah. Quick history lesson. The Simpsons first aired December 17th, 1989, based off some Tracy Ullman shorts, and became a pop culture phenomenon. Still airing today, currently on its 30th season. Despite the noticeable drop in quality, the show is still extremely popular, spawning a plethora of merchandise, such as figurines, plushes, toasters, ice cube trays, topiaries. The sky's the limit with what they could slap the Simpsons brand on. So when you've got a highly successful TV series, what's the next logical step?
In a time when computer animation brings us worlds of unsurpassed beauty, one film dares to be ugly.
The Simpsons movie. In 2D. The bunny's not breathing.
2007's The Simpsons movie. Received fairly well and grossed over $500 million. Case closed, right? It was received well, end of story. That's where I come in. I loved The Simpsons growing up, watched it every night and had tons of merchandise. I saw this movie in cinemas at the age of 5 and I loved it. I still own it on DVD from when I got it for Christmas. But is it as good as I remembered? Well, let's find out.
Not so fast.
Oh, hello. Who are you?
I'm L.S. Dark, your edgy doppelganger from another dimension. I've been sent here to derail the review and...
Oh, yeah, sorry. Nostalgia Critic has actually filmed a few doors down.
But this is a review of a movie. Who doesn't want to waste time focusing on a pointless side character thought up in 2 minutes to extend the video length? Come on, don't you want to hear my deep, convoluted, and very edgy backstory?
Not particularly, no.
It all started 4 millennia ago, on a dark, stormy night.
Well, the review must go on. The Simpsons movie was released as the show was in its 19th season, long after the drop in quality, but that doesn't mean it should be written off entirely. Like I mentioned, it was received fairly well, and I'm sure they brought their A game for their first movie. They sure brought something. The plot of the movie is Springfield gets trapped under a dome after the lake becomes extremely polluted, with the final straw being Homer dumping pig crap into it. So when the town finds out, the Simpsons escape the dome and have to start a new life for themselves in Alaska while on the run from the EPA. At first it seems weird to make the plot of their first movie about pollution, but it starts to make sense when you remember Springfield has always been portrayed as this rundown, polluted town. Funnily enough, they actually did something very similar for their 500 episode special, but that was about the family getting exiled for being a general nuisance, not for pollution. There are also a few side plots that go nowhere. It seems like when they were writing they forgot that Lisa was a character and so went back and added a storyline of her falling in love with this Irish boy, and it's forgotten about until the end of the film. But there's also a subplot about Homer getting a pig and doing a bunch of wacky stuff with it, and it's forgotten about until the end of the wait, no, that's completely forgotten about. The issue with these subplots is that they rely on a Simpson interacting with another character from Springfield. In a plot where 30 minutes in they're forced to leave Springfield. Only one subplot doesn't fall into this trap, and it's the one between Bart and Ned Flanders. And that's because it's built off his relationship with Homer. Bart starts to question why his dad doesn't give him the same kind of love and attention someone like Flanders gives his kids. So he starts to hang out and build a connection with him. And because it's being built off his relationship with Homer, even after being removed from the scene, Bart can still mention Flanders to his dad here and there, so you never forget that this is happening in the background, or in the case of Homer and the pig, that it ever happened. My only problem with it is that I feel like there should have been more scenes of Homer realizing that he's losing his son, instead of going from strangling him to, "I'm sorry for how I treated you." No, you aren't, I don't believe you. Yeah, but fuck it, right? But what is a plot without characters? So let's discuss them. One of the more talked about issues with the later seasons of the show is that the characters, especially Homer, become extremely unlikable. Is that present in the movie? Yes. It's only really a major issue with one of the characters. But the problem is, it's the main character. The rest are really one note. Lisa, environmentalist. Bart, troublemaker. Marge, easily manipulated. Homer, easily manipulates. The entire reason the town is put in this situation is because Homer dumped shit in the lake despite being told not to. And throughout the entire movie, he shows no remorse for this. Even when he finds out that the town is about to be blown up, he wants to stay in Alaska. And you know what? I don't entirely blame him for this. The residents of Springfield are all cunts. They're incredibly rude, dismissive, and I don't see why I'm supposed to care about them. And I don't mind if you got mean-spirited characters. They can work well, but don't try and act like I'm supposed to care about them. The writers did an extremely good job of making Homer the most unlikable character though.
I need you to do this with me.
That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
He just does dickish thing after dickish thing for no reason other than to get what he wants. And yes, they acknowledge this by the end of the movie, but I don't know if it excuses all the shit he's done throughout it, especially since the repercussion he gets is so minimal. It would have been so much more effective if this scene right here was the start of a montage showing Homer hopelessly searching for his family while screaming their names. When Homer bursts out of the house wordly saying Marge's name with Close to You playing,
Marge! Kids!
Close to you.
I felt for his character. But then the scene just ends. And that leads into what I believe is the biggest problem with this movie. The pacing is horrible. It's only an hour and 20 minutes, yet they waste so much time on Act 1 with pointless shenanigans, like Bart and Homer having a dare contest, Homer doing chores, and I know these parts have things in them that slightly affect the plot, but they could have been handled so much faster. For example, how about instead of wasting 10 minutes on a dare contest between Bart and Homer as a way to get him to the pig, why not have them go to Krusty Burger instead of the waffle place after the church scene? It would have saved us from having to stare at a 10-year-old's dick. They waste so much time in Act 1 with things that never come up again. Time that I feel like should have been given to the second act to make Homer a more likeable and sympathetic protagonist. Halfway in the movie, Homer out of nowhere brings up how he's always wanted to go to Alaska, and they all agree to go. But they only get there for like 5 minutes before deciding to go back to Springfield. May I also mention how their method of getting to Alaska makes no sense. So Bart reminds Homer that they don't have any money to get to Alaska, and less than 2 minutes later they resolve this issue by winning a truck in a carnival game. That wasn't your goal. How are you paying for this? You never won any money. One thing I will give the movie is that it can be pretty funny from time to time. After slogging through the incredibly boring first act, it starts to pick up with the jokes.
Oh, my boy loves Alaska so much he's applauding it. Lisa, why aren't you clapping?
But Dad...
Clap for Alaska.
There's a lot more hits than misses, which are all greatly portrayed through the voice actors. Especially Marge. If you've watched this movie, you know the scene I'm talking about. Speaking of production, they did a wonderful job on the animation. It sort of has the same problem as the SpongeBob and South Park movies, where the TV show now looks better than the film, but for when it came out it looks really impressive. The characters are a lot more expressive and the movements are way more fluid. The CG looks kinda dated, but I can somewhat forgive it. The score is also great. This movie does something I wish every movie based off a cartoon would do, and that's have a remixed version of the intro song. They have a nice orchestral version of the Simpsons theme song, and it works really well in the scene they use it in. I did a lot of bitching about the Simpsons movie, but in the end would I say it's bad? Nah. Overall it's decent, but it's really let down by a host of unlikable characters and an incredibly long and boring first act, with subplots that go nowhere. I know this will probably be an unpopular opinion, so give the film a watch for yourself. Who knows, you may end up loving it. So, did they bring their A game for their first movie? Eh, their C to C plus game definitely. At this point in time I highly doubt we're ever going to get a sequel. The creators don't want to do one, Fox aren't really pushing for one as far as I know, and the popularity for the show has died down a bit. But the movie did come out in 2007, long after the show got bad, yet it still made a ton of money. So maybe they'll take a stab at another one soon, perhaps when the series is ending, whenever that's gonna happen.
And that's how I got here.
Oh, sorry, did you say something?